Hey everybody, it's Carm here. I'm back on a late Monday morning. I'm going to come on and do yet another response video. It started off doing it outside, and then it's so humid and muggy right now that the camera lens kept fogging up, wiping it down periodically. I'm like, oh, I better just go inside. Yeah, it's not real pleasant out there. But wanted to do another response video, another one for Richard McCook, who has a really cool contest going on now, showing samplers of different favorite artists and 6-song sampler, of a way of introducing yourself to them, introducing someone to them. But he also has a thread out that he just started, where asking us to show album titles that spell out your username, whatever it may be, and even mentioning me by name in his video. So I feel even further compelled to come on and to share these. And yeah, so I thought that'd be fun to do, and having fun going through these. I wasn't sure how. I don't know why I thought I'd have a harder time with it, but it's a pretty short username. So yeah, well, I figure while I'm here, I don't know if I may have shared it with a few people, individuals, friends on here, what the username actually means, if for anyone who's interested. So yeah, Gorvo is not any of my names, first, middle, or last name, but it's a name I made up. It's a character I made up back when I was a kid. Sometime I think in late grade school. I had a buddy in the neighborhood who was into these kind of role-playing board games, where you'd make up characters and you'd roll dice to kind of determine their characteristics, and put them in these different situations, and kind of like an adventure type game. I'd play with them sometimes. A few of us would be there. Very quickly though, I lost interest in the game, but continued on with creating characters, which I found the most interesting part. So this was Gorvo, one of the characters I made up. I made up a whole bunch of them, and would occasionally do these little sort of comic strips. And actually, him and another character I started doing kind of a short story on back in high school, but never followed through with it. But yeah, so this is what the actual Gorvo looks like for those curious. And yet something that goes back way back when. And 31 is just my jersey number when I was playing basketball, organized basketball, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So around the same time. So yeah, just something I kind of brought back from the past. When it was time to finally started my channel, seems to be fitting enough. So not quite as cryptic or esoteric as one might expect. But, yeah, just a little story behind the username if anyone's interested. So I'll start right in with the picks here. So starting with G, first letter in Gorvo, we have Genshi by the Sagmeister Trio. This one's from 80, I think, in 1980. Sagmeister Trio, augmented by a fourth person here. And Michael Sagmeister, a nice guitarist and composer, electric and acoustic, kind of a mixture of jazz, rock, funk, but also kind of moody, impressionistic, somewhat ECM-like. It's another one on the Mood label. It's a label I've kind of been going back and forth, revisiting. Yeah, very enjoyable if you like that blend of styles. Initially, they were kind of influenced by, I hear quite a bit of an influence of the first Pat Metheny album, Bright Size Life, Jaco Pastorius and Bob Moses. This kind of takes it further away from that first album of theirs, which I think was just self-titled. Again, incorporating other styles and areas. It's really funky, nice interplay. Really like his guitar playing, his phrasing on electric is very distinctive, and there's quiet, acoustic passages. Like one of these pieces, I forget which one now, is a solo guitar, just unaccompanied. But very nice. I feel like that kind of mixture of styles from that period. So yeah, Genshi from the Sagmeister Trio. And now for O, in kind of a similar vein, October Variations, Volker Kriegel and Mild Maniac Orchestra. Another guitar player, Volker Kriegel, sadly no longer with us. He left about, I think, in early 2000s. Here he is here with the group. Another very distinctive guitarist on both electric and acoustic. Sitar guitar. Style of writing is quite distinctive. You know, really can't separate that from his playing. And on here you hear kind of a continuation of the previous one. A real kind of funky mixture of jazz, rock. You could also hear little bits of maybe modern classical, just little touches, more impressionistic touches. Ballad Garden and Palm Dreams, October Variation, title cut, and Spiral Crackers are particular standouts for me here. Yeah, just the way they use colors and moods, and yeah, it can go from really funky to something, you know, much more ethereal, but finding a nice line between the two. The transitions are really nice between them, and yeah, really enjoyable stuff. I like everything I've heard by Volker and his various groups. This would be a good place to start if not familiar. It's from the late 70s or early 80s. I don't see a year on this, and it's on the MPS label out of Germany. It's a really nice documentary on the label too. I'd recommend. But, yeah, October Variations, pretty much my favorite time of year. You know, mid-October to mid-November, when we actually have a decent autumn in these parts. But, so yeah, there's for O. And now for R, we have Romanesque. Roland Hanna and George Mraz. Duets for piano and upright bass, where they take classical composers and you know, put their own jazz touch on them, really seamlessly going from the original composition to something that really swings nicely, seamlessly. Again, there's no sense, and there's no awkward transitions. It's very masterfully played and approached on here. Yeah, you have pieces by Dvorak, Schubert, Debussy, my personal favorite on here. Yeah, they do his Reverie, which is really something, the way they, again, that transition from his composition to something that just really swings like you wouldn't believe, just the transition there. A couple pieces by Tchaikovsky, Franz Lethar, and Clair de Lune by Debussy. Playing that one more or less straight, kind of straight composition. Really like this for the cover too. But yeah, if you like, you know, a blending, an orthodox blending of, you know, classical impressionism and more ahead, you know, straight ahead jazz, this would definitely be recommended. I feel like Bill Evans, like the duets he was doing that he did with Eddie Gomez in the mid '70s, definitely recommend this. So yeah, this is for R. Coming on V. Forgot to take these out of the sleeves beforehand. So we have Video Magic, Eberhard Scherner. Real nice electronic musician, very diverse, all kinds of styles and contexts that he's recorded in. From I think it's from '81, in 1981. If you know him from an album like Baliagung, which is my personal favorite, where he's mixing in indigenous field recordings and musicians with his own electronic approach. This is quite different, though more accessible. And if you're coming from, you know, more of a pop rock orientation, it'd be a good introduction. He has the whole of the Police on here: Sting, Andy Summers, and Stuart Copeland, and additional musicians, drums, guitar, saxophone. I wouldn't say it sounds like a Police record. You could hear moments of that. You know, there's kind of what you could call like a mixture of synth pop, new wave, disco, even kind of musical theater. There's some spoken word parts, and you know, you could almost imagine it being in a play, kind of something out of a play, a stage production. But yeah, kind of a neat blend, and you know, I hesitate to use a term like quirky, but there's a little bit of that there. But again, if you're interested in his music and coming from a more, pop rock orientation, it'd be a good place to look into. And another side of the Police that you might not be aware of, since they're featured prominently on here, just doesn't have their signature sound as much, reflecting more of what Eberhard's doing. But yeah, Video Magic by Eberhard Schörner for B. Now we're on O. Pretty obvious choice here. My all-time favorite groups, Oregon. Always loved this cover. The first, well, I guess official recording as a group, although it didn't come out until later in the decade. Recorded in 1970, but yeah, it didn't come out till towards the end. But you could hear them at the beginning. I think they were still in the Paul Winter Consort at the time, which is really where they kind of got their start on record. Of course, you have Ralph Towner, guitar, piano, Paul McCandless, oboe, English horn, Colin Walcott, sitar, tabla, and Glenn Moore on bass. Also some violin. And yeah, as ever, most of the pieces are by Ralph Towner. Although very much a democratic group, improvisationally, and the way they approach the interpretation of the compositions. Refreshingly uncategorizable music, in my opinion. Just you hear a little bit of everything in there. Again, blended seamlessly. Music from all different parts of the world, drawing on jazz, improvisation, Western and Eastern classical approaches. Just love it. And I never heard it previous to this. I'd never heard instrumentation quite like this. Hearing sitar, woodwind, classical guitar, and bass, mixed together. But yeah, just gorgeous stuff. And as good a place as any to start with them if you're curious about something different. All instrumental. Always tells a wonderful story. Very evocative. So yeah, Oregon for O. Now moving on to 31. Yeah, he was saying you could just do it by the letter of the number. So for 30, T. So we have Troubadour. Dorothy Carter. Hammer, dulcimer, psaltery, bells, voice, and various instrumentation. Very interesting blend of, well, there's all kinds of material on here. There's French medieval, Scottish, traditional Scottish, old Irish melodies, a scene hymn, Israeli, Appalachian, and done in kind of similar to the Oregon in a way, where you hear Far Eastern influences very subtly mixed in with traditional Americana, as well as certain European traditions. Drawing from you could say the indigenous traditions of these instruments, but blending it in a very modern way. There she is there. There's another album of hers, which the title escapes me, which I'm going to look into also, which I think might be all solo. The various instruments on here. Yeah, tambora, and looks like auto harp, and yeah, very it's somewhat ethereal, but I'd say more earthy than ethereal. A little bit like some of Constance Demby's early records, except without electronics or reverb. Much kind of drier production. But the way she sings and accompanies herself on the hammer dulcimer kind of brings that to mind. Early Constance Demby. This is one from the late 70s, I believe. But, yeah, Dorothy Carter on primarily hammered dulcimer. Troubadour for the T. And finally for one, we have O, another O. Yes, this one's for you, Richard, and other fans. Of course, have I mentioned it before how much I love this record? I don't know if I'd really shown it much before, and I'm going to keep this brief for this because this is something I really want to feature more prominently in a video. But, yeah, my all-time favorite record of Mike Oldfield's, and really, if I had to do a top 50 or even 25. Somewhere in between there, this would be in there for all time. I've had this probably since high school, maybe towards the end. I got it from Secondhand Tunes way back when, so that goes the shop in Oak Park, so got it way back. yeah, just an absolutely enchanting record to me. Lots of changes of scenery, done with wonderful balance. Doesn't stay in one place for very long, but still, just to me, it's just majestic. And even the very ending, which has the kind of children's song, even that's perfectly placed, and wouldn't change anything about it. But yeah, I'll go further into this at some point. But I know, yeah, it's an artist that Richard and I share, amongst the mutual favorites. So yeah, Mike Oldfield, Home of Dawn, for the one. So yeah, it's my little response there. I thought it'd be fun to get in on this. So yeah, I still have to watch some other ones. I think a few people have responded so far. It'd be interesting to see the ones. I've seen a few with the longer names. They got Rachel, Music Man. It was quite a long username. Done a really neat take on it. So yeah, look forward to more of these, and yeah, it also got me to revisiting a few other things. It's been a little while. It's playing in the background. It's coming through. Basho's Pond, a live recording from 1985, which features Deuter. I think I had heard this with Chris, hanging out with him one time on record. It was the original vinyl, I believe. I think it's the same recording. Oh, and I wanted to mention too, I was talking to a couple of friends, some of you, about one of my little summer projects is to gradually purge myself of jewel cases, for the most part, in favor of these sleeves, little plastic, like Blake sleeves. So it's making a lot of room. It's been a great difference. So yeah, I just put the booklet in here. The CD goes in between the pages of the booklet, in the back insert back here. You can get them off Amazon for very cheap. Yeah, you have to acknowledge Chris at Dixieland Farm and Ronco, old pal Ronco from My Lung Puppy. I think they had been doing this for quite some time, and I've been thinking about it for a while, and figured since I have the time for now, among the projects I'm beginning on. So I definitely recommend recommend this if you want to make some space, if you're a CD person as well. I'll try to remember, either leave the link or the name of these. I think they're actually CD jewel case sleeves. So I think they're meant to go over your jewel case, but I'm just using them as a replacement outright. So yeah, if you're all interested. So yeah, so here's my response, and I hope you're all doing well wherever you're at, and we'll be back on soon with something else. Till the next one. Peace, love, and joy.